Hello everyone, my name is Jack Ananchenko, CTO and the co-founder at StellarSoft, and today I'm joined by Kim Gandhi, Chief Operation Officer at Foodfire Plus Knives, a company building a nationwide network of private chefs for in-house dining experiences while creating a better economic model for the chefs behind it. Today, we are going to talk about Kim's journey into the business, how Foodfire Plus Knives is scaling a two-side marketplace in a discretionary category, what it takes to balance chef supply with customer demand, and how technology and operations need to evolve as the platform grows. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And to start this off, I pretty much always do that. Let's do a little bit of introductions. Um, You've spent decades in business development, project management, customer experience. What pulled you into the Food Fire Plus Knife specifically?
Yeah, a fun story. We actually, I'd been working at a really large company, and I had another company that had a similar mission as what Food Fire Plus Knives had, and the CEO talked me into jumping into it. It was a small startup. That didn't end as I had hoped it would. But I was shopping for a birthday gift for my son and stumbled across Food Fire Plus Knives. The owner, founder of the company, Mike, um, he was amazing. And his chefs, we had a chef for my son's birthday, and I contacted the company afterwards, not knowing that Mike was actually watching customer service. He was, watching the chats come in. And I had put on there, I said, you have to tell your CEO he's doing it right. Because the customer experience, I had a great, the chef was wonderful, everything was really fun. And I said, we got to talking, and I said, you know what? I love this mission. I said, you just have to hire me. And it took us, it took us a few months of talking back and forth, but he gave me a chance, and I've been here 6 years. Best job. I've enjoyed it. We've gone from being this tiny little company, or nationwide now. We were only in 5 cities when I started, and now we're in 43 states and thousands of cities. So it's been such an amazing journey, and working with the chefs, some just awesome talent. So it's that's my journey, and it was a total pivot from what I was doing, and I love it.
Yeah, been 6 years now. It's a pretty long story so far. What did you immediately see as the biggest operational opportunity in the business?
Just the growth. The mission, to help chefs stop the burnout, stop what they're doing, being in restaurants. COVID changed everybody's perception on, we as humans really kind of changed through COVID. And we weren't as happy experiencing what was happening in restaurants and things like that. Chefs are burning out in restaurants. Jumping over into private chefing gives them that freedom and flexibility to do what they want. And so the automation that Mike put into place to begin with, we've just since then we've continued to evolve, continued to bring those in, always thinking about what's the workload going to be for a chef and what's the workload going to be for a customer coming into the website to do that. And so looking at how the customer experiences, because those are two customers that we have. We have the chefs as one customer. We have actual customers that are bringing people into their home as a second. So balancing out and continuing to put smart automation into play, but keeping the human element there. It's a human business. People are coming into your home,
Right.
they're cooking food, they're serving you. It's communal. You have to keep track of what can be automated, but what has to stay with that human touch.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And based on your past experience and your background in systems and processes, how has it influenced your way of thinking about the business that is kind of like personal, super personal, and hospitality driven?
Yeah, the funny thing is, you can have an amazing process, and it can just be a
Indeed,
terrible
yeah, yeah.
experience. And we've had those. We've gone in and said, this is the best thing. Let's implement it. And you look at it, and a couple weeks later, you're like, yeah, that was a bad idea. And so then switching, being able to switch. We just did another rollout of a new piece yesterday. and we're out evaluating it, and we're immediately writing down. We watch how the actions, the clicks coming in, and how they're following through, and we're already
Right.
taking notes of, okay, we didn't think of this. It's not working quite the way that we wanted it to go, and people are stumbling over it. How do we course correct on those? So it's continuous improvement and changing it, and not getting locked into saying, okay, this is going to be the perfect way. This is what we think will be really great, but let's make sure that we're flexible enough to say, okay, we have to make a pivot to make this even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people discovering the company for the first time, how do you explain what Food Fire Plus Knives actually does, and where you create value for two of those customers, chefs and the actual customers?
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing, people are very familiar with Airbnb. And so it's pretty much the same as what an Airbnb is, except for what we do is we're pairing up people that want a private chef experience with private chefs that are qualified to do that type of work. The trust factor for us is all of our chefs are vetted. All of them have background checks. We make sure that they worked where they said they worked. We have an individual interview with each one of them to make sure that they're not AI, that they're not going to be somebody who scams people or things like that. So it's a huge trust factor to bring a stranger into your house. So what we, really work with the customer piece on is showing, we're respectable, we're a reputable company. We really care about what happens. We want to make sure that it's a safe environment, both for the customer and also the chef. It kind of goes both ways. And the growth that we've had, I think, us being, who we are, we're honest in what we do, and I think that comes across very well in our website and in our ads and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so there are some structural differences yet from the other service marketplaces. So I mean, it's still like a human to a human, and then eventually there will be some like private catering, if you will. So
Correct.
experience-wise, it has to be a little different. On the chef side, though, what do the best partners tend to value the most about being on your platform?
I think it's because of the concierge service that we have. All of our concierges, we use Slack. It's our internal communication with them. They can reach out to us anytime or day or night, and if they need to have something, communication back to the customer, or they're in the middle of another service, they're out cooking for somebody else. Our concierges come in and they make sure that the customer's needs are met. So, if they have some questions and things like that, we'll let the customer know, hey, they're off doing another job. They'll be back with you. Can we answer your questions? And so having that administrative side, that they're not having to be on 24/7 and trying to get new business at the same time they're doing the business that they already sold, that really helps them out. And I think that difference, it isn't going into a marketplace where you can't talk to anybody. All of our chefs, they know who our concierges are. They'll reach out to them, and even we've gotten reviews from some of the chefs saying, hey, we appreciate the fact that we can talk to somebody, and they'll coach us, and they'll get by if there's something that's not quite going right. They can contact us, and we'll help them through. You know, everybody's got to, nobody's perfect. Sometimes people make mistakes. Appetizers get burned, or we leave the dessert behind, or something happens. But it's all in how we handle it from a customer service standpoint that makes it a memorable experience for our customers. And our reviews reflect that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with this kind of like personal approach and like keeping the soul there, it is. Imagine it's quite hard to expand and scale such a business. But to step back for a second, I know that you describe your work as building systems that respect crafts, protect people, scale experience without losing soul. What does it mean to you personally in practice?
Oh, well, in practice, I mean, I think that when you can wake up in the morning and say, you know what? I'm ready for work. And you're doing it without an alarm clock or anything like that, and you look forward to what's going to happen for the day. Every day is different. You don't, you never know what's coming in and what's going out. But it's you get to meet such a wide variety of people. Customers, it's very interesting. They share a lot, and we're in this wonderful industry where we get to go to some of the best events that anyone has. They're having birthdays, they're having reunions, they're asking people to marry them, they're having a bachelorette party, or they're doing a corporate retreat or a yoga retreat. Every single one of those has something that's bringing joy to the customer themselves. And us coming in and bringing food for that, and participating, it's not all of a sudden we're silent and we're behind the scenes. We're front and center being part of that experience with them. So we get to vicariously live an awful lot of experiences that most people never get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you decide what must be systemized versus what should stay human and flexible?
It really comes down to, anything that can be behind the scenes that, like, financials, or even, I mean, we have automation up front too. The chefs can chat back and forth with customers. So, but it's not an AI that's doing it. The customer's talking, the chef is talking, it's in a chat. But the system is automated to get them to each other. They can find each other and that sort of thing. A lot of the work that we have for when a customer comes into the site, guiding them to the right menus, or the cuisines that they want, the dates that they want. All of that we've done as much automation as we can. I think we've done a pretty good job about it. Our phones probably ring only 4 or 5 times a day. We don't have to have a big, huge call center, because it's intuitive coming in and working on the website. A customer doesn't have to really interact and say, okay, I got to talk to somebody.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Understood. Now I think that for the listeners, we shaped your vision and kind of like personal attitude to this kind of business. Now let's get to the like business perspective of everything and scalability. So, to my knowledge, you're targeting strong revenue growth while also doubling the chef space. What makes that balancing act hard in a category that consumers may see as discretionary?
Yeah, in the last 2 years, where you talk about, there's tariffs going on out there, there's the geopolitical, items going on. People are, even like right now with gas prices and food prices, everything is going up, right? But people still need to eat, and people still want to get together. We live in this age where even you and I are on a PC right now. We're working, right? It's all PCs are all around us. Our events, when people want to get together and they want to, sit and talk, they put aside their technology to go. Well, hopefully they're putting their technology aside, but we as humans still need to do that, and I think it's really important in the scheme of things that that's really what makes people say, well, wait a second. I want to have a nice meal, but I don't know how to cook it, or I don't have time. I love having people over, but I really hate the cleanup session of it. I can't tell you how many reviews we get where people say, I can't believe they left the kitchen spotless. You have a bunch of people over, usually you're cleaning everything up. And so having
Right.
that end to end, somebody coming in, cooking a really good meal, interacting with you, serving, and then doing cleanup, it makes for an enjoyable for the host as well, or the customer.
Right. Yeah, and then, like with all of these issues coming along and affecting the business, and that the demand is there, but the macro environment gets tighter. What becomes the hardest part of maintaining the marketplace momentum?
I think it's that balance where you say, okay, what are we going to innovate? and what are we going to utilize ad spend for, and where are we going to go? We have aspirations of going out and being international, but
Hmm.
right now, focusing in on continuing to grow within the U.S. Um, right now the target market, it's growing at a tremendous rate for this particular type of industry. I think it's supposed to grow up to about I want to say like $30 billion. It's a huge
No.
number, and so the growth itself, because people are saying, look, I'm going into a restaurant. I never get to talk to the chef. I don't get to really see. They bring the food out. It's a little colder experience, but on top of it, there's less people to do serving, and your restaurant experience isn't always the best experience anymore. And so people are saying, well, I still want to eat well. I don't want to do DoorDash. I'm tired of takeout. It's not the same quality. What else can I do? And so, and it's an affordable once in a while thing. If you want a private chef, like an ultra high net worth company does, those sort
Hmm.
of things you can't afford. Most people can't afford. But, once or twice a year, bring
Hmm.
somebody in and have a party. It is an affordable, it's like going to a fine dining restaurant once in a while. But you've got that intimate, personal, with a menu that
Yeah,
you.
you still have to interact with your friends, with your colleagues, whatever. But where do you want to do that? Do you want to go to the restaurant, or do you want to order something private? Um, yeah.
So we're seeing momentum grow with it, where people, even it's kind of interesting. We watch the stock market go up and down and all around, and it's not really affected what is happening with our business. As people get to know who Food Fire and Knives is, the
Hmm.
business is coming, and they do the research, and they do look at what the reviews are, and they question, what's this company? Is it a scam? Is it not? And I think it ends up being more and more people are looking for a trustworthy company to do this with. And we're growing like crazy just because of that.
Sure. And one key metric that, like, let's get to metrics, I guess. One of the key metrics, Kim, that is really important to you is getting to roughly one booking per week per chef, right? Why is
Mhm.
that number? Is that the number that matters to you so much?
So we have chefs that are part-time, supplement. This is supplemental income to them. They've got another job. They do this because they love to cook and they love the experience. We have chefs that are doing this full time. And so we've got this whole range within all of our chefs of what they have. For us to get to the metric of one booking per week, um,
Hmm.
that will meet if it's an average. So, an average across all of the chefs. That will make all of the chefs that we have that are full time or want to be full time, it will fill their books.
Hmm.
And you think about it. So our normal size, is between 8 to 12 people. So the normal dinner size, it's about $100. Our average is right around $100 per person. So you're looking at $1,200.
Right.
Every
Hmm.
chef, if they can do for a full time, a full time private chef usually does 3 to 4, events a week. The other
Hmm.
days they're shopping, they're prepping, they're, doing all of the things. So they're actually at an event 3 to 4 days a week doing that.
Right. Right.
That gives them an income that they can, do other things with their families, with their friends. They can make a living from that, doing that. So for us, that metric really has grown out of the fact that if I can get to that metric, I'll be fulfilling what the chefs that really want to be full-time want to do. The people that are supplemental, they'll get their 1 gig or 2 gigs every couple of weeks because that's what they want to do. They can't afford to go, leave their full-time jobs, or they don't want to leave their full-time jobs, but they do this for the enjoyment of it. And we meet the needs across the board. From an internal FFK perspective, that that metric, when you take, one per week, 1,200 per
Hmm.
week, and you multiply it
Hmm.
times the amount of chefs that you have on the platform, the numbers
Right.
go up very quickly. And for us, from a growth perspective, that ends up being a pretty phenomenal number for us as well. And so when we get to that number, we'll be able actually to cut down what our our overhead is to the customers, continue to shrink that, continue to give more money to the chefs, because our operational spend isn't going to go up linearly with the amount of revenue that we have coming in. So ad
Hmm.
spend, we'll continue to throw an awful lot. We throw about 20% of our operational expense goes, straight to
Oh,
ads.
well.
So
Okay.
it's a big portion of it. And then, we probably about 10% is all of the back end and that sort of thing. And as we grow, our goal would be to have it'd only be 5%. Our operational, what's it taking to run the company, the software, the concierges, all of that, that only being 5% of the company, ad spend being the rest, and then being able to continue to, push the rest of the revenue into the chef's hands.
Interesting. And how, like, some chefs are full time, some are like operate and participate more occasionally. What have you learned about the difference between the two? Like about your personal engagement and relationships with them?
Yeah, I mean, we've always had the mission that we were going to leave it in the chef's hands on what they wanted to do. And there are people that are very, they're tired, they're getting burnt out in their roles in a kitchen, but they don't know if they'll like this. It's scary business to all of a sudden you've got a team in a kitchen and now you're a private chef all on your own. Are you really going to like that environment? And so it's dipping your toe into it and doing it supplementally until you see what you want to do. I've seen chefs start in the 6 years I've been here, they'll start the dipping of the toe. And now some of those people are some of our top revenue performers because they've said, you know what, I enjoy this so much, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to make it full time. And they've been able to do so, learning along the way. What are the ways that they can keep their costs down? How can they make sure that they're going to local purveyors, getting the right
Hmm.
ingredients, getting local cuisine that people are going to enjoy eating, and just understanding what their market is. I think chefs, they're really, really good at their cooking and what they're doing with their craft. How do
Hmm.
you also add on to it if you're going to be in business for yourself? How do you remember how to do advertising, how to do social media, how to watch the
Hmm.
administration and the financials, tracking, what's going on with your website, making sure you're making adjustments. It's very hard for an individual chef to take all of those pieces and packages. So a marketplace like ours, we're taking care of all of that technical side of things so they can do what they love, which is the cooking part of it.
As a side question, is there any like competition within the marketplace? Kind of like, what if there are like hundreds of chefs that are within the same cuisine and they are on your marketplace, and then basically, how do they stand out? Is it by reviews, or is there any algorithm that they would want to follow to be able to stand out? Obviously, other than delivering good quality food to
Yeah,
their
I
customers.
mean, I think it comes down to, and they have to evaluate for themselves. We don't set their pricing. The chefs set their pricing. And so, when it comes to competition, you need to be on top. If you're out looking at, and they can all see each other's, because they can go out to the website and take a look. It's out, the website's for anybody to look at. So you see what your competition is doing. And, it comes down to price is one factor. It's not the only factor. It's your pictures, it's your reviews, it's your availability. We always, if a chef comes to us and says, "Hey, I'm not getting booked very often," almost the very first thing we do is we look at their availability. If you're only available on a Tuesday, you know, you're probably not going to get booked very often. Tuesdays are, if you, anywhere in the hospitality industry knows, Tuesdays are probably the lowest sales day of the week. So it would take a
Mm-hmm.
needle in a haystack to have a customer, a dream customer, come and find you in the city that you work in on a Tuesday. It doesn't stand to reason. You have to be available for the days that where customers are
Mm-hmm.
actually going to be. And most customers are looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for brunch. And then during
Mm-hmm.
the summers, they've got their vacations and stuff. So the different parts of at least in the U.S., different parts in the U.S., have the vacations during the summers or, in the holiday times. There's going to be people that are busier and doing more work in that area. So the chefs have to take all of those things into account. We do run analytics every few months. We'll put out, what we're seeing as a state of what is selling, what are the price points that are selling, what are the cuisines that are selling. Cuisines aren't always what customers are looking for, though. They're looking for an experience. So having a menu that has a theme, whether it's a Harry
Mm-hmm.
Potter theme or, you're doing your Southern cuisine or you're doing something fun. We had Princess Brides. Somebody wanted a Princess Bride theme.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking, sometimes cooking classes are what people are looking for. It doesn't necessarily always translate to, I have to have this type of cuisine. They're looking for, is there going to be something fun and playful? We have bachelorette menus, sorry, bachelorette menus that have just really fun dish names. They're cute and fun, and you can giggle a little at them. Very popular, not necessarily cuisine based, but they're all about, what is happening for that night. They're having a bachelorette party and they want to have some really fun dishes.
Cool. Has there been any assumptions about supply and demand balance that changed once you saw the real behavior on the platform?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's certain cities that we don't do as well in. It's just because we're not as well known, or just the genre of the city itself lends itself more to, again, there's the groups of people that are going to come and use the web and be out there searching for private chefs. There's some cities that we find it's all word of mouth, and so all of the chefs that are there, they're getting business more because of word of mouth. They've been working in a restaurant. Customers come into the restaurant and they say, hey, do you know of any private chefs? And then they'll have a private chef and then they spread it off to their friends. Some of those cities, until we've done different pivots on with our advertising, trying to get to those markets. So it's not a one size fits all at all when we go into a new city and see how are we going to start getting known there and bringing work to our chefs.
And as you expand geographically, and now as we're talking about this, what have you tried so far to improve marketplace liquidity in your developing marketplaces? And what probably worked or what didn't?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, um, sometimes it comes down to how many times we're getting requests and we don't have a chef in a city or state. That's how we really started off expanding. We were all on the East Coast and doing that, and one of the fun things that we said was, you know what, we really want to go to Phoenix. And this is early on. This is like 5 years ago, and we didn't have any business. Nobody knew us there. We went into Phoenix. We were, putting social media ads over there. We were trying to break into it. It took about a year before we even got a booking. It was just, we had chefs that would join and they would be like, but there's no business here. And we're like, yeah, we know. So we did a lot of trial and error, and Phoenix is one of our strong markets now. But in the beginning, it was terrible. New York City is the same way. When we first started off with New York, we're very lucky. We partnered with a really large fragrance company, and
Mm-hmm.
they had a promotion where they were doing something, and they had people would win private chefs, and so we were doing it. That's how we broke into New York. when we first went there, we had one chef that said, "Look, I'm moving to New York." He was from Florida. He'd been on our platform, moving up there. We said, "Okay, well, stay with us. We'll just have you up on the platform up there." We really didn't start getting business until we did that partnership. And now, now we get regular bookings there all the time.
Good. Okay, sounds good. And another area of interest that I think will be interesting to the crowd, given that, like, are you online by the way, or do you have any offices?
No, we're virtual.
You
We don't
virtual, yeah. So
we have
now
no brick and mortar at all. None.
okay, sounds good. Okay, so now then this topic is going to be even more interesting because in order for you to support this kind of business, you need to have some sort of technology behind the scenes, and then like run some sort of platform that allows your chefs and customers to be able to interact, and then basically technology is what allows your business to operate as efficiently as you already do. So. Uh, Your business runs on a proprietary booking platform with
Correct.
different tools and integrated, and an outsourced engineering team, as far as I know. How do you think about the role of tech in a high touch service business like this?
Well, I mean, what we've put together is has been key to our success. So, um, I I am very much a gypsy. You asked me where I was, where this first question you asked me this morning is where am I at? I'm in Savannah, Georgia today,
Uh-huh.
but in the past 2 months, I have been in Sonoma, I have
Uh-huh.
been in Seattle, Washington, I've been over in Chicago, I've been
Okay.
in Carolina, and also in Georgia. I drove. There's no flights involved in any of this. All of this was
Hmm.
driving across the country and back and forth. And so if you look at the US, I was on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. Um, I
I can
worked the
only
whole,
imagine.
I worked the whole time. I mean, my husband drove and I worked. But having the technology to be able to do that, and being able to see my chefs, I visit my chefs in those different locations and see them. That we had to build something that allowed for that type of flexibility. And so to be able to run a company and to be able to be as interactive and available and have people be able to communicate with me wherever I was at, that's been a huge premise of everything that we've done with the platform. It tends to work very well, not only for us, but it translates well with what goes on with the chefs. A chef they're also virtual. They show up
Hmm.
people's homes or they show up at people's rentals,
Right.
but they live at home. So they have to have that same flexibility. So us building a system that not only works for us personally, but also works for our chefs was is key to the success. You've got to have that virtual ability to be able to have them say, I can do, if I've got to be, they've got an app on their phones. If I've got to be able to update something real time, or I've got to take some of my availability off because I have something else going on, I've got to be able to do that right away. We've got to give them that real time access to be able to do and make those changes.
Absolutely. And as you travel, and I believe that, like, with you being on the road for such a long time, and like you being dependent on the technology, um, like sometimes it's on the technology from the analytics perspective, but sometimes you also watch how it is, how it would look like from the chef's standpoint or from the customer standpoint. How do you manage product and operational priorities when volume is increasing, but the experience still has to feel premium and personal?
It's a juggle. I mean, we struggle. We're really trying to keep very lean, as far as how many people within the food, fire, and knife side. Operationally, we want to keep it to a small amount of people. It ends up every time you add a person, you know, there's the HR cost, there's the salary costs, and all the benefit costs that go along with it. So we've tried to keep things as lean and mean as we can, but at some points, you get to the breaking point where you're saying, okay, we can't take on any more work And
Hmm.
it's not something that we can automate because it would end up impacting the personal experience that the chef has or the personal experience that the customer has. And so we're very planful, but we go right up to the edge and we're like, okay, our seams are starting to break down. We got to bring in another person because there's not enough manpower to make sure that that continues to operate. So sometimes we've gone over the edge, and then you're working, you're working a lot of hours.
I
So
can imagine.
yeah, so it is a balance, and then the first thing that we do when we get to that breaking point is say, is there anything else we could automate? Is there anything else we could put into place, but that wouldn't change the integrity of what Food, Fire, and Knives is all about?
Sounds good. And what parts of the customer or chef journey are you most focused on improving right now from the efficiency and scalability perspectives?
It's really so it's taking the flexibility of to the next level. We just, like I said, we just rolled out a new piece of code yesterday,
No,
and
cool.
it's to be a customer. They want to have their own experience. And so, the initial way that we'd set up the website was the chefs all have their individual menus. All of their menus, each menu that they have has different cuisines or different, dishes within it. And we've got customers coming in and have been coming in for some time saying, I really like the entrees from this menu, but I like the desserts from this menu. Can I mix and match? And
Hmm.
we can, is a manual process. Well, what we rolled out yesterday allows them to actually customize, build a menu themselves with all of the menus that a chef has put together. They can actually just pick from all the menus and put it onto their own customized menu.
Oh,
Doesn't
cool.
sound like a big deal, but it is a very complex because there's different price points. There's just a lot of logistics that goes into putting that in play. And so, we're listening to the customers and the amount of times that we've had that happen where we've turned it into a custom built reservation. Again, those take a long time for concierges to do and to be able to build one. If you're manually doing it. And so we said, well, let's turn this into automation. Rather than adding another person, let's give the customer the flexibility to build that themselves. Now, we'll watch over the next few weeks. I'm sure there's tweaks we're going to have to do to that because some of our chefs have, hundreds of items on their menus. It might be a little too overwhelming. So we're going to have to play with it and see what are the things. But we've given the customers what they're asking for, which is a more customized version of what they really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are the like maybe there are any like upcoming challenges that you're trying to resolve with the technology?
We so we did some interesting things with chat. So we
Oh,
have
cool.
three systems. No, not cool. So
No cool? No cool? Okay, tell me what's not cool.
yeah, so we utilize Intercom for our customer facing chat. So they can come into the website and they can talk to our concierges during that. We have Slack, which is wonderful for our intercommunications with our chefs, and also ourselves. So we use, Slack for that. And then we built a custom proprietary chat system on the website so that the customers could talk directly to the chefs. So there's three chat systems and none of them are integrated. And so there's a lot of overlap that happens within those three. And so we're one of these days we're going to go fix that and turn it into an integrated, really high performing system that we
Hmm.
can, chefs. We can better combine chef and customer communications and where the concierges need to get involved because it might involve billing, it might involve operational customers asking how to do something. Chefs don't necessarily need to know how to do something. They just need to say, hey, this is a dietary item, or you can have this steak this way. They should really be focusing on the food side of things versus how do I hit this button to make this work within the website. Some people aren't as technically adept as others. And so we
Yeah.
have to work with customers to really shape their journey through the website sometimes. So if we can get the integration to work better between those three chat systems, that'll be a wonderful improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the last one to wrap it up, like if you look ahead a few years, do you think the private dining at home will become?
I think, it's one of those things that I think will continue to become more mainstream. Um, uh, you know, I don't know that with this day and age, and I have three kids and they don't know how to. Well, one knows how to cook, but the other two are questionable on cooking. As you see, the younger generations, if they haven't learned how to cook, and a lot of times they're bringing chefs in just to say, okay, can you show me what you're doing? They want to have great food. So I think that the business is just going to continue to grow, and it's going to end up being a main competition for restaurants, I think, in the future. It just because the low overhead, what chefs can do, and they continue to get better and better at it. I just think that we're going to see more and more of this out there. The demand is out there now. It's just continuing to grow as people hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. I truly appreciate you sharing the insights. For any listening operator, the operator who's building in high trust, high touch category, you'll understand that, like even from this example, from food fire and knives, it is very important to keep like to make sure that your model ensures and protects both sides of the business, which is like in this case, this is chefs and consumers, and you have to keep the human element intact. Kim, thank you again for joining us. I'll leave all of the links to your website, to your LinkedIn profile for anyone who wants to get in touch down below in the description, and truly appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.